Hi, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Kim King. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing at HYCU, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about cyber resilience in the SaaS era. I'll start with telling you a little bit about myself. So I started my career in healthcare, and I was actually on the patient care side. And this was right about the time when electronic medical records really started gaining traction. There was a general understanding, and it was reinforced to me. I had to take multiple compliance courses on this. There was a general acknowledgement that it was important to keep customers' data safe and protected, but there wasn't really an understanding of the implications of not doing so. When I transitioned into technology, I started working at Rackspace. I joined Rackspace right after they launched their AWS business and worked on that business. This was right at the time that cloud computing was really starting to evolve, and businesses were really starting to realize how impactful it can be to add cloud computing into their transformation strategy. When I left Rackspace, I joined Snow Software, and I joined Snow right about the time that the dawn of the end user era. So business units started procuring technology. Everything wasn't in the hands of IT anymore. You started to see end users signing up for free trials and purchasing SaaS on company credit cards. Things like that. And the focus really shifted towards more widespread use of technology across the organization by end users. Fast forward to today, I'm at HYCU, and unfortunately, we are smack dab in the middle of the age of ransomware. The situation that you all are dealing with today has gotten pretty crazy. So IT environments are more complex than they've ever been, and organizations have data spread out all over the place. These first two stats are probably not going to be very surprising to you. Almost everybody is using hybrid or multi-cloud infrastructure these days. The stat that is probably going to be surprising to you, that was very surprising to me, is the number of SaaS applications that organizations use today. Which is over 200 now, 217 SaaS applications. What does this mean for your ability to manage and protect all of those data sources? I love this analogy. Our CEO, Simon Taylor, came up with this, and I think it's a really fitting analogy. So I'm going to ask you all to imagine that your IT environment is a die. And let's think about that die in 2005. Each side of this die is a data source. In 2005, it's pretty straightforward. Almost everything is on premises. You can you can assign somebody to protect each of these data sources, and that's a pretty good strategy for protecting your IT environment. You move forward to 2020, and this is a 100-sided die, so less than half of the number of SaaS applications that businesses are using today. You think about trying to put somebody in front of each of these data sources, and it becomes pretty impossible to imagine how a modern IT organization would do that. Fast forward a few more years, and it's just chaos. There's data all over the place. The number of data sources that you're being asked to protect has increased exponentially, and it's a virtually impossible task. Right about this time is when we have CIOs or IT leaders really start to question this, and they say, well, I've done a really good job of ensuring that I know what's running inside my IT organization. There's no way that the organization is using this much technology that I don't know about. So let's dive into how IT and applications have evolved to really think through where all of that SaaS usage is coming from. So 20 years ago, we talked about just about everything's on premises. You had visibility and control into all applications in the company because they were likely sitting in your data center. Fast forward 10 years. You're still protecting everything on premises. You have good visibility into that, but public cloud is born and SaaS. And so some of these applications and the data that resides in these applications is shifting outside of your control. Fast forward 5 more years, and now the public cloud providers have started creating additional services. So there's infrastructure as a service, the foundational compute, but now they're introducing platform as a service and database as a service, and you're starting to see more SaaS usage. So more of this data, more of these applications are shifting outside of your control. Look at today, and this SaaS bucket has just exploded. So you still have the on-premises data and applications. You still have the infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, the database as a service. But when we look at the SaaS bucket and all of the potential things that your organization could be using, and this is just a representation, but you start to look in there and notice SaaS apps that marketing might be using. You see Marketo, your prospect database, Gong, maybe sales is using Gong to record their sales calls. Maybe your organization's using Carta to manage your options. HR, potentially using Workday. When you start to really look at the services, the things that you're asked to log into by your business, it really becomes apparent that there's probably a lot more SaaS usage than you were aware of. Unfortunately, there's a very common misconception about how this data is protected, what's protected and who's responsible. It's pretty clear cut when you look at on-premises data and applications. That is the business's responsibility. And almost everybody realizes that they need to back up that data, that they need to protect that data. The misconception comes in when we start to look at all of these as a service, things. So IaaS, PaaS, DBaaS, SaaS. There's a very common misconception that the vendor is responsible for protecting that data and that they have it backed up so it'll be recoverable. When we were starting to do research on this problem, on the challenge, and the magnitude of this challenge, we actually reached out to quite a few of our SaaS vendors and some of the other leading SaaS vendors in adjacent industries. And we asked a simple question. We said, we accidentally deleted some of our data. Could you help walk us through how to recover it? And pretty unanimously across the board, we got most of the responses were from legal, and they, referenced a section of the contract, a shared responsibility model, but they said they couldn't help. Most often they said that they were responsible for ensuring that their service was secure, but that it was our responsibility to protect the data that we used within the service. That means that all of the data that you're using, all of the data that's residing in those as a service apps and cloud services, which amounts to nearly 80% of business critical data, is not protected. Thinking about that in the context of some of the trends we're seeing with respect to ransomware, we're seeing ransomware attacks occur every 11 seconds now. It's probably more frequent than that now. The duration of downtime after an attack is up to over 20 days. And when you look at the total cost of a data breach, it's up over $4 million. Combining all of this, the increasingly complex IT environments, all of the different data sources that you're being asked to protect, with this evolving threat landscape, ransomware being a lot easier to procure. You can actually go on the dark web and purchase ransomware as a service for $100, which is terrifying. It makes it so much harder. It creates this perfect storm and makes it so much harder for IT to protect their data. So this has seemed all gloom and doom. Now let's get to how do you ensure that all of these workloads are protected? First and foremost, understand your risk. So catalog your IT landscape, not just the things that are owned by IT, But which SaaS apps does the business use across the board? Get an understanding of which ones are protected and which ones aren't. It seems very self-explanatory, but protect what you can. And when you are protecting these sources, look for secure ways to protect them. So ensure that you're using immutable air-gapped backups so that ransomware attackers can't get to that data, that it'll be recoverable when you need it. And lastly, look for ways to future-proof your data protection strategy. So there isn't today one organization that is capable of protecting everything in your environment today, but there are organizations who have created strategies to be able to scale to protect all of those things. And I'm proud to say that HYCU is one of those organizations. So I will quickly talk to you about HYCU. At HYCU, we have created HYCU Protege. So HYCU Protege is our data protection as a service, and it is actually the first and only data protection as a service that was built to be able to scale to protect all of the world's thousands of applications. The way that we have done this is via our cloud. So we recently announced the launch of our cloud, which is a low-code development platform for data protection. And what we've done with our cloud is we've basically opened up our proprietary data protection technology to enable SaaS vendors, ISVs, even freelance developers to develop data protection, backup and recovery for as a service apps and cloud services in days, as opposed to months or years. Each of these modules that's released via HYCU Protege is native and it's purpose-built. It enables organizations to take advantage of granular backup and recovery in the native terminology of the application. So if you think about Jira, this means that you can protect in Jira down to the task or the project. Each of these modules is secure and secured and certified by HYCU. And all of this is delivered as a service and able to be procured via the marketplace. If you're interested in getting started with HYCU today, a great place to start is with our R-score assessment. This will help assess your readiness to recover. We have a self-assessment that's available, as well as an in-depth consultative engagement. All of these are available at the link here. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. It was my pleasure to talk to you today, and please don't hesitate to offer up any questions. Thanks.